Welcome back to the AI Survival Guide for Non-Tech Professionals, presented by JoyFuture.ai. I'm your host for this explainer, and today we are diving deep into episode 2 of Joy Chen's incredible framework. Now, if you caught our first explainer, you'll remember Joy established one absolutely fundamental truth that we have to keep front and center. AI is not magic, right? It's not a wizard behind a curtain. It learns statistical relationships and uses those relationships to produce likely outputs. Simple as that. But that brings us to the really exciting core question for today. What exactly happens in that invisible space between you pressing enter on your keyboard and receiving an AI response? Joy points out that this is where things usually go wrong. When you get a disappointing AI result, it's almost never because the model isn't smart enough. It's because of an information gap. The AI is working with a completely different picture of the task than the one floating around in your head. So once we can actually visualize what the AI is doing in that gap, you're going to have so much more clarity and control over these tools.
Here is our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the invisible brief, then break down the process into 3 steps: tokens, the context window, and sequential generation. After that, we'll apply it all to a real-world case study about a board email. And finally, we'll wrap up with your ultimate AI survival skill.
Section 1. The invisible brief. Let's talk about why a prompt is definitely not a magic phrase. Okay, so people very often treat AI like a magic 8-ball. You know the drill. You shake it, ask a quick question, and just cross your fingers hoping the perfect answer magically floats up. But a prompt isn't an incantation. Instead, I want you to think about it like briefing a highly capable but completely uninformed new human colleague. Imagine asking a brilliant new executive assistant, "Hey, please prepare the presentation." Well, your new colleague would immediately have to stop you and ask, "Wait, which presentation? Who are we presenting to? What's the main decision this is supposed to drive? Are there specific documents I should pull from? What's the tone? When is this due?" See, when those details only exist in your head, the instruction sounds perfectly clear to you, but to the person receiving it, it's totally incomplete. And the exact same thing happens with AI. We constantly assume the system can just intuitively grasp things that it literally has no way of knowing. The response you ultimately get is driven by a very strict formula. The model you're using, plus your explicit instructions, plus the available context in the chat, plus any connected tools. All of that equals your final response. Honestly, really internalizing this formula is infinitely more useful than trying to memorize some massive cheat sheet of prompt hacks you found on social media. The AI relies 100% on what is explicitly provided. It does not have access to the unspoken context bouncing around your mind.
Section 2, Step 1. Tokens. Let's look at how the system actually reads what you type.
So when you enter text into an AI, the model doesn't read it the way you or I read a book. We read for immediate conceptual meaning. The AI, on the other hand, chops the text up into smaller machine-processable chunks called tokens. A token could be a short word, it might just be a syllable of a longer word, or even punctuation. The exact breakdown depends on the model, but the concept is always the same. Now don't worry, the practical takeaway here isn't that you need to sit at your desk counting tokens all day. Absolutely not. Tokens matter conceptually because both your input and the model's output take up a limited amount of working space. And because the AI processes these tiny units of language, it explains why things like your phrasing, your formatting, and your examples act as such powerful signals. When you use bold headings in your prompt, those specific tokens signal structure to the AI. When you provide a quick example of what you want, those tokens signal the exact tone and format to mimic. When you upload a source document, those tokens become the specific facts the model can pull from. It's all just data to the machine.
Which brings us to a quote that honestly needs to be a guiding principle for all of us. The AI receives your words, not the unspoken context behind them. Let's say you're rushing and you just type, "Draft an email to the board about the delay." The system receives those exact tokenized words, that's it. It doesn't magically receive the 2-year highly stressful history of the project. It has zero clue about the board's specific anxieties. It doesn't know the actual technical reason for the delay, the delicate political dynamics on your executive team, or the promises you made last month. Unless that history or those facts are explicitly put into the conversation, attached as a document, or pulled in by a tool, they are completely invisible. The AI can't read your mind, right? It can only read your tokens.
Section 3. Step 2. The context window. This is the active working space for the AI, and grasping this will instantly solve one of the biggest headaches you'll have with these tools. I want you to picture the context window as the model's physical working desk. On this desk, you've got a few things spread out. You've got your current prompt, any earlier messages from this specific conversation thread, uploaded documents, the underlying system instructions that govern how the AI behaves, and maybe some information it pulled from a web search tool. The model uses exactly what is sitting on that desk right now to give you an answer.
But here is the critical thing to remember. This desk is not a permanent, flawless, infinite memory. It has actual physical boundaries, and the size depends on the specific AI you're using. So in a really long conversation, older details from the start of the chat might get pushed to the back. They might get summarized or, and this happens a lot, they might fall off the edge of the desk entirely, which means they are completely gone from the active context window. Plus, starting a brand new conversation means you are walking up to a totally clean, empty desk. It doesn't automatically carry your old desk over. Now sure, some models let you save preferences, but as a professional, you should never blindly assume the AI remembers every little thing you've ever said. This working desk reality perfectly explains why the model sometimes seems to, quote-unquote, forget a strict instruction you gave it just 10 minutes ago. It didn't decide to ignore you out of spite. The instruction simply fell off the desk, got buried under a bunch of new text, or got overwritten. So the solution isn't to get mad at the computer, the solution is deliberate context management. If a task is consequential, actively manage that desk, restate the objective, remind it of the audience, and bring those constraints back front and center.
Section 4, Step 3, Sequential Generation. This is how it creates the answer one piece at a time. So we know how it reads input and where it holds it. Let's look at how it actually generates a response.
Let's walk through this carefully, step by step. First, the language model processes all that available context currently sitting on the working desk. Second, based entirely on that context and its massive training data, it estimates which token is most statistically likely to come next. Third, it samples that token and adds it to the sequence. And finally, it repeats this incredibly fast to build sentences, paragraphs, or even code. It generates the response sequentially. It's doing it in the moment, piece by piece. This is such a profound mindset shift because a lot of us subconsciously assume the AI is retrieving a complete, perfectly written answer from some hidden infinite filing cabinet of facts, like it's just searching for the right document. Actually, scratch that, it's the exact opposite of a filing cabinet. It is building the response right then and there, conditioned entirely on statistical relationships and whatever happens to be on the desk at that exact second. This is exactly why asking the exact same question twice can give you slightly different wording, and why tweaking just a couple of words in your brief can drastically alter the entire output. The AI is literally calculating a totally different path of tokens, just based on your new signals.
And this brings us to a massive, absolutely crucial warning. The model's fluency is a capability. It is not an audit trail. Generative AI is hyper-optimized to produce text that fits beautifully, and fits might mean it's coherent, it's polite, it sounds incredibly smart, but coherence alone does not guarantee truth. If the working desk contains flawed assumptions, the model will cheerfully build an elegant, very persuasive argument right on top of those bad assumptions. If you ask a highly leading question, it's statistically likely to just follow your lead and agree with you, kind of like an overly eager intern who doesn't want to tell the boss they're wrong. If you demand a strict citation without actually giving it the source document, it might generate something that looks exactly like a citation. I mean, beautifully formatted, but it'll be completely fabricated. So always remember, coherent does not mean truthful.
Section 5, Case Study, the board email. Okay, let's take everything we've talked about and ground it in a highly practical, real-world corporate scenario. Let's see this in action. Let's look at that vague instruction we mentioned earlier. Draft an email to the board about the delay. If you toss that onto the AI's working desk, a generic model is going to spit out a generic response. It'll probably apologize, vaguely mention unforeseen challenges, and promise to do better. It'll sound super professional for sure, but strategically, it might be completely wrong for your actual situation. Now let's contrast that with a detailed brief. Imagine you typed this instead. Draft a 250-word email from the CEO to the board. The product launch will move from October 1 to November 15 because security testing found 2 issues that must be resolved. No customer data was exposed. The team recommends delaying rather than reducing testing. The board previously emphasized transparency and risk management. The purpose is to explain the decision, preserve confidence, and request approval for an additional $180,000. Use a direct, accountable tone, do not blame the vendor, and with 3 decisions requested from the board. Just look at the difference. The model now has the exact audience, the hard facts, the strategic purpose, the tone, what not to say, and the desired actions, all sitting right there on its working desk. The output from this is going to be incredibly useful. And it's not because you use some secret magical prompt hack. It's simply because you took the information gap between your brain and the machine's desk and you completely closed it.
But we have to pause here because there is an absolute law of AI survival we need to cover. Better context improves usefulness for sure, but it does not transfer accountability. Even with that spectacular brief we just wrote, human review is non-negotiable. You still have to look at the output and ask, is that statement about customer data actually verified? Is that $180,000 figure final or just a rough estimate? Does legal need to clear this before it goes out? Will the board actually believe November 15 is a credible date? The AI is a brilliant engine. It can flawlessly compose the text, but it absolutely cannot own the truth of the facts, and it cannot take the blame if sending the email was a bad strategic move. That is entirely on you.
So, knowing all this about the working desk, you might be thinking, okay, well, I'll just paste absolutely every single document I have into the prompt to be safe. Please don't do that. That is a terrible idea. More information is not automatically better context. Dumping too much on the desk creates very real context risk. Pasting in irrelevant detail just adds a ton of noise and confuses the AI about what the actual instructions are. Throwing in contradictions totally derails the context window, and you'll find the AI hallucinating or just guessing which conflicting fact you want it to use. And most importantly, privacy exposure is a massive, massive risk. Dumping unfiltered files into a prompt means you might accidentally expose sensitive personal data, health info, financial records, or corporate secrets. Good context is carefully selected context. A tight, one-page brief is almost always better than a 20-page data dump. The golden rule here is to provide the smallest, most sufficient context required to get the job done right.
Channeling Joy Chan's perspective on this, there is a huge implication here for leadership. Joy often says we need to treat AI like that highly capable new team member we talked about. Look, you'd never evaluate a new hire based solely on how fast they cranked out a first draft, right? You'd evaluate whether you actually gave them the right access, a clear brief, good examples, and proper feedback. AI needs that exact same level of management discipline. Leaders have to actively design their organization's context environment. Real leadership AI readiness means establishing approved, authoritative data sources so your people know what facts to use. It means defining crystal clear data privacy rules so nobody leaks sensitive info. It means creating a library of reusable, detailed task briefs so your teams aren't reinventing the wheel every morning. And it absolutely requires mandating human verification workflows so there is zero ambiguity about who owns the final sign-off. Way too many companies waste months endlessly debating which brand of AI model to buy while totally ignoring the actual information design and workflows that make the model safe and useful in the first place.
Section 6. Your AI survival skill. Mastering context awareness. This is our reoccurring segment, and it's the absolute ultimate takeaway for you from this explainer.
Your ultimate survival skill boils down to asking yourself one guiding question before you execute any consequential task with AI. What exactly is on the AI's working desk right now? What critical context is missing, and what information absolutely must remain private? If you can answer that question clearly, you are completely in control. And to make this super practical, we've broken it down into a quick checklist that every professional needs to run through.
Let's walk through this 5-question context awareness checklist. Number 1. What outcome am I actually trying to create? Define your exact goal before you type a single token. Number 2. What does the AI need to know about the audience and the situation? Think back to our board email. Tone, history, and intent are huge, so put them on the desk. Number 3. Which facts or sources are authoritative? Do not let the machine guess. Point it directly to the verified truth. Number 4. What information should not be shared? Be relentless about protecting your organization's sensitive data. And number 5. What must a human verify before the output is used? Draw a hard line where the machine's draft ends and your professional accountability begins. Honestly, cementing these 5 questions into your daily routine is the most powerful framework for managing AI like a pro.
To wrap things up, remember that your ultimate AI survival skill is context awareness. You are the architect of that context window. You decide what goes on the desk, and you decide what stays off it. When you master that, you transform AI from this frustrating, totally unpredictable slot machine into an incredibly powerful, aligned colleague. So the next time you sit down to write a prompt, I want you to ask yourself, what unspoken assumptions are you leaving off the desk? In episode 3, we are going to tackle a massive topic: why AI sometimes produces information that sounds beautifully, confidently correct, but is actually completely wrong. We'll show you exactly how to build a practical system to catch those hallucinations. Until then, keep our core philosophy from joyfuture.ai in mind. Understand AI, apply AI, lead with AI. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you